here. So buckle up, Dave, because this was one that you said you're gonna listen to me on, and you're just gonna rely on me. So I spent the last 2 hours, literally since they made the pick. Tyson Cole, shout out Tyson Cole. He wrote all the other news pieces of all the other players that were selected, because all I was doing was texting people and watching tape on this guy and learning everything I can about Aleksei Medvedev before the show started. So now I'm going to put on my goaltending cap, which I haven't done in a while. I don't get to do that as much as I used to, but when I evaluate draft eligible goaltenders, I want everybody to think of a scale, right? You think of raw ability at one end of the scale, and then you think of like refined technique and just more of a finished product, I guess, on this side of the scale. Now, that's not to say goalies who are, go to the $12,000 goalie schools and their post integration is great by the time they're 13 years old. That's not to say that those kids can't become great goaltenders at the NHL level. But when I'm evaluating teenage goaltenders, draft eligible goaltenders, that's kind of how I look at it, is a scale of raw ability and how refined your technique is. Now, the Canucks' typical strategy is to go for the late round guys who have all that raw ability that Ian Clark is so good at finding. You go for all that raw ability, not a ton of technique. And you find those guys in the late rounds because with their junior clubs or wherever they're playing in their draft year, the results typically aren't great. Like, they let in some weird goals. They let in some weak goals. But how do they react when there's broken plays? How do they react east-west? How well do they seal off the bottom of the ice with just natural flexibility? What's all that look like? And those are the parts where you kind of have to dive a little bit deeper to find those guys. Like, you're not going to find any of that information. Well, I shouldn't say that. Well, you're not going to find it on a box score, is what I should say. Okay. You're not going to find any of that information on a box score. So you need to do the work. You need to scout these guys, which is kind of why I've stopped doing it, to be honest with you, because it was a pain in the ass when I used to do it. When I used to go watch, I'm just like, oh, you had a low save percentage. Let's go see what you were doing. Well, how did you get there? And then sometimes I would watch some of the worst goaltending I've ever seen in my life. And then other times I would watch a guy like a Kukoskembo, but I digress. I did want to bring this up as well, because I'm working on the write-up for Canucks Army, as I bring up this scale, right? I think back to a conversation I had on the record with Ian Clark back when the Canucks drafted a Koskembo. And I talked to him about it and said, we were talking about the raw ability of Koskembo. And he wasn't joking, but he said to me, I say this, and sometimes I think I shouldn't say this, and some people will disagree, but I can teach technique in a weekend. And there was some hyperbole in that, but there was also some truth to that as well. And the broader point that he's getting at is that you can't teach these things like this. Like I said, the flexibility, you can work on your flexibility, sure, but how hard do you compete? How do you deal with it when there's a deflection in front of you? You've already dropped down to the butterfly, and now the puck's moving east-west, and you need to move east-west, but you're already in the butterfly. How effectively and efficiently can you do that? How long does it take you? What are all your intangible assets look like? What do those look like? And I think that has been the Canucks strategy with Ian Clark at the helm of drafting goaltenders. That's been their strategy, is go find those guys in the late round, because Ian Clark clearly has an eye for these guys. Go find these guys in the late rounds. Now, when it comes to Medvedev, he's somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of how I say it, because I watched him. I watched a bunch of tape today. And with Medvedev, like, you have the results in junior. He was really good with the London Knights. And I'm always really wary of drafting a guy in the OHL, especially a guy that performed well in the OHL. I'm always kind of like, oh, okay. Like, you gotta look under the hood. And that's why, when I'm sorry, but if a guy puts up a ton of points in junior, usually I'm like, oh, this is great. If you're a forward, this is great. You can usually get a lot of the picture. Mm-hmm. I firmly disagree that you can get the picture when you look at a goalie's stats in junior. There's so much that goes into it. And basically what I'm getting at, I appreciate it, Dave. But what I'm getting at is that when I looked under the hood and when I spent these last few hours watching Medvedev, and I'm going to write this up, this is going to be at Canucks Army at some point tomorrow on Sunday. When I looked under the hood with Medvedev, I really liked a lot of what I saw. Yes, there's some refined technique, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. That's why he went in the second round. But you look at a guy even like Askarov, right? Yaroslav Askarov. There were results because he was with Ska. Yeah. But that ability wasn't refined when he was drafted. And people that have listened to this show for years know that I said that about Askarov the minute he was drafted, and I don't think he should have gone as high as he did. But anyways, there's a lot of raw talent with Yaroslav Askarov. Medvedev is somewhere in the middle. Medvedev is more of a guy who has a lot of raw ability. He's going to need some refinement on his technique. For example, I was texting with someone about the pick, and I was just going over a video, and I sent him a picture of Medvedev setting up to stop a shot from the high circle off a face-off, and his stance was just way too wide, right? And I said, look, his stance is wide. Raw. This is raw talent. This means he needs way more coaching. This means he's going to need a lot of work. And the person sent it back to me and said, well, look at the fact that, like, play the clip. He is still on his feet during this. Like, his stance is wide, but he stayed upright. He didn't go wide and then fall. He goes wide and then he's still moving, and he was wide. It wasn't good, but think of how easy that's going to be to fix. And that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say this is a guy right in the middle. Further to it, I reached out to 4 teams, just various people that know where Medvedev was ranked and how the team felt about them. 4 anonymous NHL teams, and I'll tell you this. 2 of them were like, oh, raw talent. And 2 of them were like close to a finished product. So I'm sorry, but 4 teams, these guys don't, I mean, maybe they know each other, but they didn't know I was talking to other teams as well. And I just reached out to four sources, 4 different contacts at 4 different teams. And they told me our guys ranked him raw, our guys ranked him really refined. So I'm thinking this is someone that's right in the middle of that scale. So I just wanted to share that. I'm gonna have a write up on excuse me. I'm gonna have a write up on Medvedev tomorrow. But he's got some really intriguing things, and like when you watch him play, you can see that innate talent that I think is so important when you're drafting goalies. And yeah, like I said, this wasn't going to be a guy you were going to get in the late round. Like, look at the reaction among the scouting community, right? People are like, oh, this is one of the best goalies in the draft, and I agree. I looked under the hood, and I think this is one of the best goalies in the draft.
Now, so obviously, you know, I defer to you. You just laid it out perfectly. But obviously, I did a little bit of digging myself. I'm not coming in completely blind. So I think what you just said, you know, he's raw, he's athletic, he's got all these great skills. The only issue that I had is when I read it, it just sounds like Aku Koskenvoa, which is great. But Aku was back in the 6th round, right? So like you said, he's not going to go. But I think the issue that I think probably most people will come out with is that, you know, 47th overall, where there was still quite a few guys to go. And then they also picked, you know, first overall pick in the 3rd round. And so my question to you is that just a case of them being worried that he wasn't going to fall to the 3rd round? Or is that just you know what, this is our guy. We're not too high on many of the players right after. Let's just take him now. This is our guy.
I think it's a bit of both. I think it was their guy, and they didn't want to miss out on their guy. That's happened in past years. The Canucks really like Joel Blomqvist. I think I reported that at the time as well. They wanted Joel Blomqvist. They did exactly what you just said. They wanted to wait. That didn't work out. Joel Blomqvist got scooped up by the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 2nd round. I will also say this. There's been a general trend with the Canucks, and I think this is a good rule to follow. You should be taking a goalie 2 out of every 3 drafts. Like, with how goalies turn over and how much turnover there is at the position. Also keeping in mind that you're never really taking 2 or 3 in a single draft. You think of how many defensemen you take, how many forwards you take in a draft. You shouldn't take 1 every year. I don't think there are teams that say, okay, we're going to try to take at least 1 goalie every year. But let's not forget that the Canucks hadn't drafted a goaltender since 2022 when they took Ty Young. And look, Ty Young, name dropped by Patrick Alvin last week,
they love him.
Did some really great things in his first year pro. Told you so. Just throwing that out there. But I did. I called Ty Young early. But anyways, also I have the title of being the only guy that talks to Ty Young at training camp for the past 2-3 years, and dev camp, same thing. I always go talk to Ty Young. He's a great dude. I love my conversation with Ty Young. But anyways, back to what I was saying. What was I saying, Dave? Oh yeah, so I don't think they had the option. I don't think they had the option to wait. And I will also point out that if you're not going to take one, right, in 2023 and you're not going to take one in 2024, I have no problem with your 2025 goalie, which we knew they were going to take. Like, it'd be ludicrous to go 3 years without drafting a goalie. Yeah. I have no problem with them doing it and getting a high end guy like Medvedev. And I really like Medvedev so far from what I've seen, just from the viewings that I've had. I really do like Medvedev. I think he's a good goalie. I think he's going to play. You talk about high floor. I think he's one of them. And here's another thing, Dave. One of the youngest players in this draft. Yeah. He's still growing. He's listed at 6'2". He told everyone today that he's 6'3". A direct quote is that I have another inch in me. That's what he said. He might get to 6'4". Like, and that's the thing. He was. Where did I read it? I think Stephen Ellis had it that he was 5'10" or 5'11" last year. Yeah. And he grew into his body, and here it is. Okay. This is what Stephen Ellis wrote. Like any goalie who grows, Medvedev needed time to adjust to his larger frame. He was drafted to the OHL in 2023 as a 5'11" goaltender, but stands 6'2" now. And according to Medvedev, he's 6'3" today. And then, Steven goes on to talk about the success in the OHL this year. But I do like this pick. I like it. I like that it's a guy who's put up solid numbers, got the raw talent, and he's young. He might have another inch in him, Dave.
Well, and London Knights, so Austin Elliott, he was their starter. He's moving on next year. So he's not only young, but he's going to get a chance to play on a pretty damn good team in London next year as well. So you're picking him, you're maybe picking him up right before he, really hits his stride, where he's getting more than, I believe there's 34 games that he started this year. And by the way, put up great numbers. Like, he won rookie titles for his numbers this year. Like, he was no slouch as a backup this year. So yeah, I agree. I did find it interesting, considering he wasn't the first, second, or even third ranked goalie on most people's list. So for me, when I heard it, it just kind of it intrigued me, because I think Ian Clark and the Vancouver Canucks have, they've done enough that when they pick a goalie, you don't ask questions. You just, if they think that he's good enough to be selected in the second round, I'm just standing back and saying, okay, he's a second round goalie, right? Like, I don't have too many questions. And I trust their judgment, to be honest. I think they've earned that right at this point. They've churned out some pretty impressive goaltending. I mean, Ty Young, is it Artie Seelovs? Those we're talking about some pretty impressive young goalies right now. So,
JJ in the chat, he said Medvedev, a good pick considering his age. Where would he have been projected in next year's draft? Now, this guy speaking my language, and I brought this up. Young player, right? Like, born September, I think it was 10th. I was just looking. September 10th, I think his birthday is. Don't quote me on that.
September 10th. The cutoff, I believe, is the 15th, right?
Okay. So I was going to say, I don't know why I tried to say his exact birthday, but I got it right, so that's why. That is a great question. What does Medvedev look like if he has a full season starting with the London Knights? This guy was already projected to be a second round pick this year. Like, the Canucks didn't reach for Medvedev.
No.
They get him now. What the hell does he look like if he has a full season as the guy with that London Knights team, who, again, is going to do good things next year in the OHL playoffs as well? Like, all of a sudden, you're in that Ravensburgian conversation. You're in that conversation of being like a first-round pick. That's another reason that is a really good pick for the Canucks. And make sure you clip that, Jacob. That was bang on. That was a great question.
Hey, you've convinced me. I had my doubts. Obviously, I'm not negligent to goalies. Obviously, I take a look at them, but I obviously focus a little more on the players. I'm just not, that technical when it comes to goalies. And so, with no fourth round pick, I was, is this the guy that we want? But I think this entire hour, I think you've truly convinced me. I'm okay with the pick, and I actually like it now. So.